Imagine a road like this, winding, isolated, shrouded in the coastal fog of Northern California. In the early 1970s, for the young women of Santa Cruz, this wasn't just a road. It was a hunting ground, a place where the simple, youthful act of hitchhiking could be a final mistake. They vanished one by one, students, dancers, daughters. Their faces would appear on missing person posters, their names whispered in hushed, fearful tones across college campuses. The community was paralyzed by the fear of a faceless monster, a phantom who stalked their highways and preyed on their children. But the monster they feared wasn't a phantom. He was 6'9". He had a genius-level IQ of 145. He was so polite, so well-spoken, that he would have coffee with the very police officers who were hunting him. He was a gentle giant who hid the most savage impulses imaginable behind a disarming smile. His name was Edmund Kemper. Welcome to Killer's Psyche. Today, we step inside one of the most articulate and disturbing criminal minds ever recorded. We will dissect not just his crimes, but the very architecture of his rage. This is the story of why. Kemper's method was a terrifying blend of patience and psychological manipulation. He understood the fear in the community, so he adapted. He drove a modest car, kept it clean. He made sure he looked like a safe, responsible student himself. He knew a young woman would be wary of a creepy-looking man, but a friendly, intelligent giant? He was an anomaly. He was, in their eyes, safe. He would often drive past a potential victim multiple times, waiting for the perfect moment, a moment when their guard was down. He called it trolling. Once inside the car, his demeanor was his primary weapon. He would engage them in conversation, talk about school, about their lives. He made them feel comfortable, secure. He would drive them towards their destination, reinforcing the illusion of safety. It was a calculated performance designed to dismantle every survival instinct they had. The moment they were relaxed, the moment they believed they were safe, was the moment he had already chosen for them to die. The violence that followed was extreme, but for Kemper, the act itself was just the beginning. What happened after their deaths revealed the true depths of his psychosis. He would take his victims back to his mother's apartment, a place where he himself felt powerless and humiliated. There, in the very space controlled by his tormentor, he would perform grotesque rituals. These acts were not random. They were a symbolic desecration, a way for him to feel a sense of ultimate power and possession over his victims, something he never had in his own life. He documented everything. In his mind, he was conducting his own twisted form of research. He wanted to understand not just his victims, but himself. This desire to analyze, to articulate his own monstrosity, would later provide psychologists and investigators with an unprecedented window into the mind of a serial killer. But at the time, it was part of a terrifying feedback loop, with each murder fueling his dark fantasies and pushing him closer to his ultimate target. After months of terrorizing Santa Cruz, Kemper's rage finally turned inward towards its original source. On April 20th, 1973, he waited for his mother, Clarnell Strandberg, to come home. The arguments, the years of psychological abuse, the emasculation, it all came to a head in a final horrific act of matricide. In his own chilling words, he wanted to see what it felt like. For him, this was the culmination of his life's work. He had finally silenced the voice that had haunted him since childhood. He then killed his mother's best friend to cover his tracks. With his primary mission accomplished, a strange calm fell over him. The urge to kill was gone. He cleaned up the scene, packed a bag, and simply drove away. For days he just drove, listening to news reports about the monster of Santa Cruz. And then he did the unthinkable. He picked up a phone, called the police, and began the most articulate, detailed, and chilling confession they had ever heard. The giant was ready to talk. To understand the man, we must look at the child. Edmund Kemper's journey into darkness began long before his first crime, in a home devoid of warmth. His mother, Clarnell, was a volatile and domineering woman who harbored a deep resentment towards men, a resentment she projected onto her towering son. He was a constant reminder of her failed marriage. She subjected him to relentless psychological abuse, mocking his size, his interests, and his very nature. She saw him as a monster in the making. The most infamous element of his childhood was his confinement. From the age of 10, she forced him to sleep in a locked, windowless basement, fearing he might harm his sisters. This isolation didn't just breed resentment, it became a crucible for his dark fantasies. Alone in the dark, his mind became his only escape, a place where he could craft worlds in which he was not the victim, but the one in control. He was, in effect, being trained to live inside his own head, a skill that would later allow him to meticulously plan his crimes. The rage finally boiled over when he was just 15. Sent to live with his paternal grandparents, he couldn't escape the pattern of being controlled by figures he resented. He shot and killed them both. It was a clumsy adolescent explosion of violence, but the seeds of his future methods were there. He wasn't sent to prison. He was sent to Atascadero State Hospital, a maximum security facility for the criminally insane. It was here that he discovered his true talent: manipulation. He was a model patient. With his genius IQ, he memorized psychological tests, learned the terminology, and told the psychiatrists exactly what they wanted to hear. He played the part of a remorseful, reformed young man so perfectly that he fooled everyone. He even became an assistant to the psychiatrists, helping them administer the very tests he had learned to beat. After just 5 years, against the initial recommendations, Edmund Kemper was declared rehabilitated and released back into the world at age 21, a certified monster with society's stamp of approval. The core of Killer's psyche is the why. For Kemper, the answer is a psychological knot tied around one person: his mother. Every woman he killed was a surrogate for Clarnell. The act of picking up a trusting young woman was a reversal of his own powerless childhood. In those moments, he was the authority figure. The subsequent violence was a reenactment of the rage he felt toward his mother, and the horrific post-mortem rituals were his way of symbolically dominating and possessing her, achieving a final twisted victory that he could never have in reality. Psychologists refer to this as the mask of sanity, and Kemper's was flawless. His intelligence and polite demeanor were not just a personality trait, they were a highly developed camouflage. This mask allowed him to navigate society, to befriend police officers, and to lure his victims into a false sense of security. It hid the fractured, rage-filled psyche beneath. This duality is common in organized killers, but Kemper's ability to articulate the separation between his two selves is what makes him a subject of such